She died 3 times before breakfast, and nobody noticed except me. The first time was at the corner of 5th and Madison, where the morning rush swallowed her whole, as she stepped in front of that delivery truck to push a kid on a skateboard, out of harm's way. The second was in the subway station, when she dove onto the tracks to retrieve a woman's insulin kit that had fallen through the gap. The third was quieter, more personal. She gave her last $20 to a bad homeless veteran outside the coffee shop, knowing full well she had nothing left for her own medication. Each time she died a little. Each time the world kept spinning. And each time I watched her resurrect herself with nothing more than a tired smile and the quiet conviction that tomorrow she'd do it all over again. Her name was Margaret Chen, though most people called her Maggie, and some didn't call her anything at all. She was 53 years old, worked double shifts at St. Mary's Hospital as a nurse, and lived alone in a studio apartment that smelled like lavender and instant ramen. She wore the same 3 scrubs in rotation, had a laugh that sounded like wind chimes in a storm, and possessed the kind of beauty that only revealed itself when you bothered to look past the exhaustion etched into her features. I was her neighbor for 2 years before I really saw her, really truly saw her. It was a Tuesday in October when everything changed. I was coming home from another soul-crushing day at the marketing firm, my head full of quarterly reports and client complaints, my heart empty of anything resembling purpose. The hallway of our building smelled like old carpet and someone's burnt dinner. I was fumbling with my keys when I heard it. A soft, broken sound coming from Maggie's apartment, crying. Not the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet, devastating kind that people do when they think nobody's listening. The door was slightly ajar. I should have kept walking. Privacy is sacred in New York City. It's the one thing we can still afford. But something in that sound reached into my chest and squeezed. "Maggie?" I knocked softly. "You okay in there?" The crying stopped. A long pause. Then, "I'm fine, David, just tired." But I'd heard that particular flavor of fine before. I'd said it myself enough times, staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror at 2 a.m., wondering when exactly I'd stopped being a person and started being a productivity machine. "Can I come in?" Another pause. Then the door opened wider, and there she was. Mascara-streaked face, hospital scrubs still on, one shoe missing. Behind her, I could see the apartment immaculate, except for a single photograph, lying face down on the tiny kitchen table and a letter beside it. "I'm sorry," she said, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "I don't usually fall apart where people can hear me." "We've been neighbors for 2 years," I said. "I don't think I've ever really talked to you." "That's on me. Do you want company? Or coffee?" "I'm good at coffee." She laughed, that wind chime sound, even through the tears. "I'm a nurse, David. I'm excellent at coffee. But yes, come in. I could use a friend right now." The letter, it turned out, was from her daughter. A daughter I didn't know she had. 28 years old, living in Seattle, married with a baby boy that Maggie had never met. The letter was short, brutal in its efficiency. "I need you to stop trying to be part of my life. We're fine without you. Please respect my boundaries." "I wasn't there," Maggie said, staring into her coffee mug like it held answers instead of instant Folgers. "When she was growing up, I was working 3 jobs after her father left. By the time I could finally breathe, she was 17 and angrier than a storm. She left for college and never really came back. And now? Now she's a mother herself. I thought maybe that would change things. I've been sending cards, little gifts for the baby. I guess I was wrong. The photograph on the table was old, faded. A young Maggie, maybe 25, holding a tiny girl with dark pigtails. Both were smiling, frozen in a moment before everything fell apart. "I see you, you know," I found myself saying. "Around the building, around the neighborhood. You're always helping people. The way you held the door for Mrs. Patterson when her hands were full. How you sat with that scared kid in the lobby during the storm last month. You give and give and give." "It's not enough," she whispered. "It's never enough." Something cracked open in my chest then, because I realized I'd been asking myself the same question for years, filling my days with meaningless work, my nights with mindless television, all the while feeling like I was drowning in the shallow end of my own life. "What if we made it enough?" I said. "What if we stopped trying to earn love from people who've already made up their minds and started sharing it with people who actually need it? She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something shift in her eyes. That's how it started. The project we never named, the mission we never formally declared. We began small, making extra sandwiches and handing them out to homeless folks on our route. Maggie taught me which ones needed diabetic-friendly options, how to ask someone's name like you actually cared about the answer, how to look a person in the eye even when society had taught them they were invisible. We expanded. Saturday mornings became volunteer shifts at the food bank. Tuesday evenings were spent reading to kids at the children's hospital where Maggie worked. Wednesday nights, we'd walk the neighborhood and check on elderly residents, making sure they had heat, food, someone who knew they were still alive. Maggie showed me how to be present, how to listen not for your turn to speak, but to actually hear what someone was saying beneath their words. She had a gift for seeing people, not who they pretended to be or who they used to be, but who they were in that exact moment, deserving of dignity and kindness regardless of their circumstances. 3 months in, we met Tommy, 17 years old, kicked out by parents who couldn't accept who he was. He'd been sleeping in the subway, dodging cops and predators, trying to finish high school from library computers. Maggie found him crying on the steps of our building one night. Invited him in, made him dinner, and by the end of the week had networked with her hospital colleagues to find him a safe place to stay and a job in the cafeteria. 6 months later, I ran into him. He was wearing a crisp white shirt, studying for his GED, saving money for community college. She saved my life, he told me simply. Maggie, she saw me when I was invisible. The letters to Maggie's daughter never stopped. One every month like clockwork. Never pushy, never guilt-tripping. Just updates about her life, expressions of love, photos of the neighborhood. They all went unanswered. I asked her once why she kept trying. Hope, she said. It's the only thing they can't take from you unless you give it away. The call came on a Sunday in April. I was at Maggie's apartment. For our weekly meal prep session, we'd started cooking in bulk for the elderly residents who had trouble managing on their own. Her phone rang, an unknown Seattle number. She froze, staring at the screen like it might explode. Answer it, I said. Her hand shook as she brought it to her ear. Hello? I watched her face transform. Tears came first, then a smile that could have powered the city. Emily? Oh my God, Emily. Yes, of course. When? I'll be there. I'll be there tomorrow if you need me. Her daughter had a difficult labor. The baby was in NICU. Emily's husband was deployed overseas. She was alone, terrified. And somewhere in the desperate middle of the night, she'd found one of Maggie's letters and finally called. Maggie flew out the next morning. I drove her to the airport, watched her walk toward security. With a small duffel bag and a heart so full it seemed miraculous her feet stayed on the ground. She was gone for 3 weeks. When she came back, she showed me pictures. Her grandson, tiny and perfect. Her daughter, exhausted and grateful. The two of them together, something broken, finally beginning to mend. I don't know what happens next, Maggie told me. Maybe she pulls away again. Maybe this is the start of something new. But for 3 weeks, I got to be her mom. I got to hold my grandson. I got to help. You help everyone, I said. You always have. No, she corrected gently. We help everyone. You think I could have kept going all those months without you? You gave me purpose, David. You reminded me that the small things matter, that showing up matters, that being kind in a world that profits from cruelty is its own revolution. I thought about the person I'd been 2 years ago. Successful on paper, empty everywhere else. And the person I'd become, someone who knew his neighbors' names, who carried granola bars for the homeless man on the corner, who understood that the opposite of loneliness wasn't company but connection. You died 3 times before breakfast once, I said. I watched you give away pieces of yourself until I was sure there'd be nothing left. But you're still here. You're still whole. How? Maggie smiled, that beautiful wind chime sound filling the space between us. Because kindness doesn't deplete us, David. It refills us. Every person we help, every small act of grace, it doesn't take something away. It reminds us why we're here. Last week, I quit my job at the marketing firm. I'm going back to school for social work. It'll take years and I'll be broke, and my mother thinks I've lost my mind. But when I told Maggie, she hugged me so tight I could barely breathe and whispered, Now you're really living. Emily and the baby are visiting next month. Maggie is nervous, hopeful, terrified, excited. All the complicated things that come with second chances. We're planning a neighborhood potluck to welcome them, because that's what we do now. We make space for people. We see them, we show up. Sometimes I think about that October night. Maggie crying alone in her apartment. A letter from a daughter who wanted nothing to do with her. I think about how easily I could have walked past, minded my own business, let her suffer in privacy, and I think about all the lives that would have remained unchanged. Tommy still on the streets. The elderly residents still alone. Me still drowning in meaningless success. Her, just her. A nurse with a laugh like wind chimes. A woman who kept dying and resurrecting, giving away pieces of her soul and finding them returned tenfold. A mother who loved without guarantee of reciprocation. A neighbor who became a friend, who became a guide into a better way of being human. They say you can't change the world, but Maggie taught me that you don't have to. You just have to change someone's Tuesday. You just have to see the invisible person. You just have to keep showing up. Keep being kind. Keep believing that your small corner of the universe matters because you're in it and you choose love. Her. She saved my life by letting me help save others. And isn't that the whole point of being here at all?